Robert, thank you so much for coming in. Now, we know year on year we see an increased number of families that are deciding to school their children at home. What is so different about the Valenture Institute? Am I saying that correctly?
You're saying it exactly right. So interestingly enough, there's over 100,000 students who are homeschooled right now in South Africa.
Wow.
And homeschooling conventionally, or should we say traditionally, is, as you might imagine, paper-based correspondence. You get sent a bunch of textbooks. Typically, mom and dad are expected to tutor you through the material, and then once or twice a year you'll write exams. And that serves a purpose, and I'm certainly not detracting from that. One of the leaps we're now able to make, though, is that with the advent of the digital media and online access, we can engage students in a far more interactive, highly supported learning experience mediated online. And that is really at the heart of what Valenture Institute is offering.
Now, you are also the co-founder of quite a well-known online learning academy, if you can call it that, GetSmarter. And that became very popular over the last few years, especially amongst young professionals who perhaps cannot take time out. And there's certain things that they're interested in, but they don't want to take the time to do a huge degree that's going to take years. What have you found from your experience with GetSmarter that led you to believe that there was a gap and a need for something like the Valenture Institute?
We had great privilege. My brother Sam and I started GetSmarter back in 2008, and just last week GetSmarter surpassed 100,000 students educated in 134 countries around the world. And of that, we've got a 92% graduation rate. So 92% of students who start those courses end up graduating. And
that's a high turnaround, isn't it?
It's a very high throughput rate, especially for an entirely online, open enrollment online program. And we learnt an unbelievable amount of lessons over the years working with the likes of Oxford University, Cambridge University, Harvard, and so on. We had the opportunity to get exposure to some of the world's leading minds in online pedagogy and online education practice. And really, if I had to distill it down to two key themes as to why I believe this can translate so well into the high school environment, it's that, one, education is fundamentally about connection. And when you give students the opportunity to connect in meaningful ways through applied project work in small groups where they can get to know each other, where they have an intimate relationship with their tutors, with their mentors, unbelievable leaps can be made. So that's the first one. The second piece is that the most profound education is always challenge-driven. And you think about the way that education works in the real world, or let's say in our lives. You encounter a challenge that you don't necessarily have the skills to overcome, and you go and you learn the skills, and you go through sometimes the rather painful process in order to gain the skills and the competencies to effectively overcome that challenge. Now, what happens traditionally in high schools is that you learn subjects and content completely devoid of the context in which it might be applied, and the challenges
removed from reality.
Removed from reality, very well said. And so I've been somewhat obsessed about this for the last few years, trying to find what's the center rallying point, what are the greatest challenges that leaders of tomorrow really care about. And we did extensive market research in a number of countries around the world over many months. And what we found was just absolutely astonishing to me. And that's that the next generation really cares about making the world a better place. And it's more than just lip service. These students are putting time and money and are self-organizing themselves to help address challenges. And our education institutions are not necessarily giving them a platform in order to augment that very natural tendency. So at the heart of Valenture Institute, what we've done is we've adopted the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we've integrated that into the curriculum so that students are actively working in what we're calling SDG labs every single semester. And they're identifying challenges in their local communities, and they're working collaboratively with the support of their mentors and tutors to help overcome those challenges. They're then supported by the subjects that they're studying, because individual subjects, we still need to accept that there's a place for them, and you need skills in mathematics, geography, the sciences.
Reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Absolutely. But how do we use those rather to support in the application of solving the world's greatest challenges?
And create world citizens to send out into the real world.
Well said.
Now, what a lot of people will listen to this and say that this all sounds wonderful on paper, but the one thing that many would say will always be an issue, they'll put up their hand and say, What about the social interaction where children learn to deal with other human beings face to face like they do at a school?
Absolutely. And I've got, I guess, a two-part answer to that. The first is that our children are entering a new era, and that new era is fully globalized and it is highly virtual. And one of the key skills in the future is going to be individuals and professionals who can effectively collaborate virtually across a network of global citizens. And this is part and parcel of what we are already gearing students up and giving them the capabilities to do at Valenture. The second piece is that you're absolutely right. We've got to create opportunities for students to link up in person, to forge strong social bonds and so on. So what we've done is that we've linked up with a vast network of sports, culture, dance, music clubs, etc. throughout South Africa. And depending on students' geographic location, they'll be able to self-select into one of those clubs of their choice. So this is not part of our offering, but we're strongly encouraging our students to partake in those sorts of activities. In addition, in the Valenture environment, students are able to self-select into social clubs, and those clubs include things like robotics. They include things like book appreciation clubs, movie appreciation clubs, and for the inaugural cohort, we've got 15 different clubs that students can self-select from. And then the final piece is that in tackling these SDG challenges, students are put into these small groups, and they actually have to work collaboratively in order to solve these problems. So it's a highly engaging, highly social online learning experience. It really defies the convention.
From parents who've decided to do the homeschooling thing, even before something digitally like this was available, the one thing we always hear is they're finding more and more an ordinary school in South Africa is an environment that they cannot control. Bullying is an issue, and the list goes on and on. You would probably say Valenture Institute is speaking to those needs as well.
Absolutely, that's one of the markets, and it's been somewhat overwhelming since we launched in South Africa 2 weeks ago to see just what volume of interested students are coming to us because of those exact issues. And at Valenture, we're creating a highly inclusive, incredibly inviting and supported environment, and we believe we can offer a really fantastic alternative.
If you don't mind me asking, what kind of cost are we speaking about here?
Absolutely. So it's equivalent to, and does depend on how many subjects you end up taking at different levels, but it's equivalent to private school education in South Africa. What I will say about that is that we're launching in South Africa with a view to growing globally very quickly. And one of the interesting things about what happens when you start to educate students from different parts of the world is that you can start to feed back some of that surplus back into South Africa and start offering extensive scholarships and so on. Okay. So for our first year, we will be offering some scholarships, but in the future, we're going to be rapidly increasing that.
Change the world in that way as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. That is Robert Paddock. He's the founder and CEO of Valenture Institute. Very interesting project looking at an online high school. Thank you so much for coming in.